Everyone has to make aliyah, it's the only Jewish value. It's not the only Jewish value. I like to tell people, I talk about Hakotel this way, I tell my children this way in general. If you don't appreciate that Eretz Yisroel, not everyone has to make aliyah, but if you don't appreciate that Eretz Yisrael is different and unique and special in our homeland, then I think you're missing something. In other words, when I grew up living in America, I knew it was a great place, and that's where I lived. I called it my home. But really, in a certain sense, my house was my home. My community was my community. I didn't feel America was mine. In a certain sense, I walk around here, I feel like Israel's mine. And that I think you can have, at least intellectually, that knowledge in America. I think I had that in America. When I came to Israel, I kind of like, emotionally, I connected to what I always knew. So in that sense, again, not everyone has to make aliyah tomorrow, but you should appreciate what we have, and you should appreciate, in general, and particularly Yom Ha'atzmaut time. I guess it's a great time to reflect upon the incredible gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given this, this generation.
Welcome back to another episode of The Jews Next Door. We have an incredible pleasure today to be sitting with the one of the senior Rams, a really sought-after, very popular Rebbe at Yeshivat Hakotel, Rav Jesse Horn, who also teaches at NY and has taught at other seminaries, a scholar in residence in communities all over the world, regularly lectures, and he's an author of Double Take, a book about biblical personalities, as well as many, many other articles in many different publications, and a very, very popular and sought-after Rebbe, and really appreciate taking the time to talk for a very special Yom Ha'atzmaut edition episode, talking about what it's like raising children in Israel, what it is, reflecting on his own childhood and how he was raised, not being in Israel, and how we can do a better job of raising our children to love Israel and all the different components that come along with that. So thank you so much for taking the time. Really, really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Great to be here.
So let's start with, tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, I guess, and then your aliyah process. Let's just go through that a little bit.
Okay, I guess my story kind of leads into the aliyah process, so maybe they go hand in hand. The entire family were Balei Tshuva. I grew up in Twin Rivers, New Jersey. I was in public school really from like 4th grade till around 8th grade.
Wow.
I remember, we were in like a little local elementary school, Shalom Torah, till about 4th grade. I switched over in 4th grade. I remember in 4th grade, actually, it was in the winter time. The lake had frozen over. We were playing ice hockey on the frozen ice. And I remember at the end, we started like just having a good time. And I was thinking to myself, I remember like slipping and falling once, and everyone laughed. And, I said to myself, maybe my purpose in life, sounds funny, like philosophical for a little kid, is to make people laugh. And I remember that's like the first time I think I started looking for like depth in life, maybe, if that makes any sense.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
very
okay.
mature.
Yeah. I remember that night, I slipped 2 or 3 more times on purpose just to get a few more laughs. I got a bunch more. That night I laid in my bed, going to sleep. I'm like, no, not doing it. I got to keep on searching for purpose. I'm only 8 years old. I'll find something else. But that wasn't the way to go. Then at some point in time, I guess I got a little older. I remember like in 7th grade, they had these dances on Friday nights. And I guess, we'd all go. And I remember my mom once asked me who I danced with, and I listed her a bunch of names, and none of them were Jewish. And she's like, that's it. At 13 years old, he's dancing with non-Jews. And she sat down in my bed when I was going to sleep, and she kind of did like showing me like a chains with her hand, like making a chain. She goes all the way back to Moshe and At our Sinai, we marry Jews. And I got to make sure if at 13 you dance, who knows 23, who knows what's going to be? We got to make sure.
And at that time, your mother wasn't religious herself.
No. In other words, we always were a little bit traditional. I was like the frummest of public school. You know what I'm saying? We used to, maybe I had to explain it, but we used to do more than everybody else. We used to have like a kosher home and stuff like that, but not really. Yeah, correct. We didn't keep Shabbos and stuff like,
Wow, that's fascinating that she like that specific thing had such a
all my life I knew my parents had expected us to marry Jews, and in any event I guess they kind of saw that as a little bit of a threat, and they said that's it, you go into yeshiva. They kind of pulled us, myself, my sister, they're going to send us to Hillel and Deal. And they sent us to NCSY. Somehow we kind of like caught on. I kind of caught fire. I guess the question I was asking for years subconsciously is like, how can I live a meaningful life? What can I do with my time that's worthwhile, that's worth investing in, etc. And I think God was the answer. That kind of really what's inspired me. I flipped hard. Like I really, in like 8th and 9th grade, I was a little bit, I remember one point in time I told my mother, like once I heard about the halachas of Shomer Negi, I'm like, Mom, I can never touch you again. So she obviously didn't appreciate that. And, she sat down to cry. So I gave her a hug in the spot. I kind of backed off, and I learned the halachas a little more. I realized there's not opinion in the world that would even suggest that. But I kind of I was really motivated and serious to do mitzvahs and to invest and kind of live a meaningful life. And I felt, again, religion was the answer to that question. at some stage in the game, I kind of decided I wanted to go into chinuch over making aliyah. I planned on staying in America and kind of like serving the Jewish people and doing, making my whatever contribution I can make there. And I guess at some point in time when, I got a job offer working at Yeshivat Hakotel, I realized I can kind of do my shlichut from the old city. Like, what could be better? That kind of, we were always Zionistic. We always loved Eretz Yisroel. We always appreciated, the unique, time period we live in that we have the opportunity to be here, but it was really the job that kind of brought us over.
Wow, I'm just curious, like what calculations went into, like I'll say it more explicitly, like did the chinuch of your children, like how did, was that a thought in your mind of like at that time of the aliyah, like how's that going to affect in terms of
Yeah, no doubt. I was always a little afraid. I mean, it means a lot to me to raise from children who are committed to Yirah Shamayim and mitzvahs, etc. That's probably one of the most, I like to tell my Talmidim and Talmidot, the most important thing I can ever do in my life is be a good father, and the most important thing my wife can ever do is be a good mother. And I think it's true about all people. So we try very hard, and it was very important for me to be successful in this area. So I was a little nervous because it was uncharted territory, uncharted waters. I didn't really know what was going on in Israel. I didn't, you see once in a while, you hear stories of kids off the derech. You hear them in America also, but I felt I can kind of navigate through American culture better. So yeah, it was scary. That was one of my big fears.
Wow. And you also mentioned that you grew up. I mean, not that you necessarily grew up Zionistic, but I don't know if that was part of like your upbringing, because you said your parents really wanted to make sure that you married Jewish. But where did you develop that Zionistic approach that you had?
I guess a combination of a few things. My father was he has a deep appreciation for Klal Yisrael. He always used to talk about the Jewish people and the Jewish people and Jewish people. So it's kind of naturally flows in one to the next. That was definitely one thing. I spent summers in Yeshivat Hakotel. I learned here in Yeshiva. I was in Gosh, and I appreciated, both being here as well as the messages. Although the truth is probably when I made Aliyah, I fell in love with Israel more than once. I fell in love with Israel more than twice. In a certain sense, that love grows deeper every day I'm here. So I love it. I enjoy it. I enjoy looking around. I enjoy looking at the hills. I enjoy walking around Yerushalayim. So I guess it's a combination of both. Ideologically, I feel this is where we belong, and simultaneously, emotionally, I grew to just, become very fond of just being here. I just love being here.
Yeah, it's amazing. One of the lucky mechanchim who are able to do it in Eretz Yisrael. It's amazing. Yeah. Really incredible. So you mentioned, yeah. You mentioned that there were concerns, of how you were going to navigate, raising children and other components, I'm sure as well. What would you say are, I guess, either we'll focus both on the positive and the negative. What are some of the benefits of raising children in Eretz Yisrael on a religious level or just in general, and what are some of the challenges that come up with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. In terms of benefits, there are things that I didn't see coming, but I guess maybe I should have. Like, we drive around and we're heading out to the Dead Sea. We pass the city of Yericho, and all of a sudden we tell the story of Yericho. We're driving around the Golan. I tell my, when we come or the Galil, or whatever the stories that come up, we talk about Hayal Yo and Har Carmel and the Galil, and we talk about that, and obviously Hebron and Yerushalayim. So that's one thing that kind of like I didn't anticipate that at all. Additionally, the education, is certainly in learning. There's a lot more opportunities. I have a son who's in 12th grade. He's going to make a Siyam on Shas in like a month. I don't think that would have happened. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Thank you. And he's not. I have a nephew who's halfway through, and he's not the only one. Like a lot of the Rebbeim who I work with in Yeshiva, Rabbi Hakotel, as you mentioned, a lot of them have children who were also made similar siyumim. Actually, that's one of the reasons why my son was inspired. Rabbi Tarragon, who's Rabbi Reuven Tarragon, has a son. A couple of his sons did the same thing, and my son was like, "If they can do it, I can do it." And so, it was almost so. In that sense, that kind of also, I didn't see that coming so much as well. But that's like a big advantage as well. Those I think things would not have happened in America. There's a lot more independence. My kids, my seventh grader, my eighth grader, they kind of take a bus to Yerushalayim, go to the mall and shop on their own. My kids work a lot more. Starting at younger ages, they're, cashiers in stores and figuring out stuff. There's a lot more independence and a lot more responsibility. I guess maybe just knowing you're going to go to the Israeli army, it's just a deeper sense of responsibility in general, responsibility for Klal Yisrael. I don't know. Those, I guess, are the major differences in terms of advantages. In terms of... Yes,
you mentioned just now that that in terms of like the schooling, like the difference. So first thing, just as you said, what you said about your son. So my nephew who lives in Eretz Yisrael also he made a siyum when he was 12 on all of even before 12, actually. Maybe I think when he was 10 or 11, he made a scene on all Shas Mishnayos. And Rav Eisenstein, I didn't have the first episode of this podcast I did it with Rav Eisenstein, and he was telling me that his son was a little bit younger than my nephew, or maybe he was a little bit older than him, and he saw that, and he said that was like inspiring for him. Like it just raised the bar, as opposed to, it's like you were saying, like the surroundings, like that's what's happening, which is very powerful.
Yeah.
You also so you mentioned the schooling though. I'm curious, as an American who grew up in America, who it's a very different school system. How did you find that, like, navigating? Like, I know some of my friends who have made Aliyah recently, like, feel like, at least in the beginning, it's like, like a little like, whoa, like really trying to figure that out and like see.
Yeah. I mean, there's two things. There's school, and then there's like figuring out the culture out of school. School is actually a little bit easier. Like we did a lot of homework. We visited the schools. We spoke to a lot of people. And there's a Rebbe in Hakotel, Rabbi Ari Heller, who he does twice as much homework and research as me. So I spoke to him. We visited, and we do these type of things a lot. So in that sense, we tried our best. What actually surprised me is how much, I don't want to say how much they grew up on the street, because that has like a terrible connotation, like it's not the ghetto, but how much the culture of the Yeshuv, I live in Neve Daniel, which is here in the Gush, how much of the culture of the Yeshuv kind of impacts them. Now, I guess it makes sense. Had I grown up in Teaneck or Chicago, who knows where, you got to believe that, like, you know the difference between New Yorkers versus out of towners, and the different, like these things are like subtle, but like I was surprised, at how much, I think even more in Israel than even in America, the community you come from and the social, the kids on the block and that those type of things, I think they have a strong impact in, on my kids' lives and how they grow up and who they are, et cetera. So that was, I mean, a lot of it was very good, and a lot of it was a challenge.
Right. Right. Well, you were about to say like some of the other challenges that maybe you experienced with raising a child.
Nothing. A little bit. I don't understand. It sounds funny. Like we tried very hard to raise our kids both very American and very Israeli. I always tell my children, you're not 50-50 or 100-100. It's not really true. They're really like 95-95. But, when I see my children, both my sons in NC, so I call them this summer, they're like total, meaning in my mind, they get along with the Americans very, very well. And when I see my sons in like the Israeli schools they go to, and the schools that they go to, especially the high schools, they're like not Gush schools. They're much more Israeli, more Merkaznik, a little different feel. And like I see like the Israeli sides coming out. So part of me feels like I did an excellent job raising my children's American side, and then there's an Israeli side which is like a little foreign to me. Like my daughters, my sons, both. Not even. They act a little different not totally different, same kid, but like I guess everyone acts a little differently when they're around different friends. On some level, not totally differently. You try to be yourself, but different people pull out different parts of your personality. So I guess like, I don't know.
What would you say were those, the factors that led to, like you say, you feel like you did a good job raising that, so what would you say like led to that? Meaning,
what are some of the things I did that was successful as a father?
Yeah.
Let's see. The two things that come to mind, I'm blessed in many, many, many ways, but two things that come to mind. One of them was a unique opportunity. One of them I think is, I guess, the way my parents raised me and kind of what I'm trying to pass on. The first is my children have like excellent role models. I look at my life growing up and how important my role models were. My children have excellent, excellent role models, and I was put in a position, really blessed to be able to kind of help navigate that, and my children hang out with Talmidim in Yeshivat Hakotel. My sons look up to them as role models, and then Zionistic Kollel, and my daughters have the MMY girls. Like these are just really good influences. Cool. It's some of the best kids that our community has to offer at like the most idealistic time of their life at the Rebbe's house. It's like the best of the best of the best. Who's coming in? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So my kids get to look at that. I remember one time, one of my children said to me, who's like in 8th grade, he says to me, Abba, in Israel, it's not as cool to be frum like it is in America. I'm like, I'm not sure you got America properly, or just the particular small niche you saw. That's one thing. So we try very hard to give our kids good role models, number one. And number two is we try our best to have like really a lot of one-on-one time. I take my kids out to breakfast and to lunch and to dinner one-on-one all the time. Each one, we have 7 children. Can I know her?
Wow.
Yeah. And each of them, I really try a walk. When they're little, I tuck them in to go to sleep. And, usually the kids don't want to hear anything I have to say. Every time Abba's like talking by ideology or ashkafa or preaching, they're like, oh, God. But if the alternative is going to sleep, for the little kids, they love it. They couldn't get enough.
If you're looking for a great way to have some good, clean, kosher fun with your children through the powerful effect of music, Look no further because J Karaoke is here. J Karaoke gives one and all the platform to belt out their favorite tunes from a library of thousands of Jewish songs, hundreds of artists and genres across multiple decades of incredible Jewish music. Personally, I know that I love singing. I love it. I love karaoke, but I was really never able to get into it because it wasn't the Jewish songs. And that's where J Karaoke comes in with their huge selection from the latest hits to the classics. They even have nursery rhymes for your little ones. And with features like key changes to help you sing, to make you more comfortable as you're singing, and speeding it up or slowing down the song, they have really thought of everything. To enjoy Jewish karaoke your way, all you need to do is head to jkaraoke.com. Choose a subscription that fits for you. And to make it even more fun, you could purchase their state-of-art karaoke kit, which gives you the feeling as if you are today's top singer. You can insert whoever you feel it is. Connect your kit to any device, like it could be a laptop, computer, a tablet, whatever it is, and you plug in your speaker, plug in your J Karaoke microphone, and you sing away. It's as easy as that. That's all it is, and it's really fun. I checked out their website. It really looks amazing. They have an incredible amount of song selection. Anything you want. They got Thank You Hashem. They got Mordechai Shapiro. They really got it all. You can subscribe monthly for just $4.99 a month, yearly for $49.99, and we have a special deal here for you. For any of our listeners, if you use the code JewsNextDoor, DOR, you get an additional 10% off. And if you don't want your children to be using a device with internet, J Karaoke's got you covered. You can download the app onto your desktop. Once you have it up, turn off the internet, let them sing all day long without the internet. Check out J Karaoke today and let the fun begin.
If you treat children, or anyone, you treat people, you treat children like children, they act like children. If you treat them like adults, they kind of grow into adults. And I thought that was very, so we try very hard.
So what do you mean by treating them like adults? Meaning even when they're children, like what does that look like?
Some things like we have fewer rules and more expectations, which really are the same thing, just the kids respond better to them. Sure. If a kid does something wrong, we try our best not to punish, but to talk and to communicate. And if a punishment is necessary, we'll ask the kid what do you think appropriate punishment is. Or I'll say something like, listen, I'm going to treat you like an adult as long as you earn that. Once you screw up enough or mistakes, then okay, we're going to have to come to punishments. Like, earn, you want to be respected, not get punished. You want to be a stay up late, those type of things.
Right.
But that's like America, Israel. I'd imagine that would be the same no matter where we live.
I'm curious also, as an American who, meaning you grew up as an American, not you're an American now.
Totally.
But as growing up as a real American, are there things that I guess in a way are like hard for you to relate to in Israeli society when you're, as you see, like vis-a-vis like raising your children, meaning like things that they're experiencing that are then like therefore hard, or like, no, like at this point, like really?
Nothing comes to mind at first glance. I don't know. I mean, we try hard. I mean, there's some Americans who, when they make Aliyah, there's this, it's almost like we are not Israeli. We're not interested in doing that. The country this and the country that, and Israelis this. And like, I got to believe that, like, puts a sour taste in the kid's mouth. I can't imagine that's healthy for a kid to think that everything is complaints about where they are. Right. Our attitude has always been like, we're not going to give up our American side, but we're going to try to become as Israeli as we can also. We try our best instead, 200% person, bring it. The same thing I raised my children with. We try our best to cultivate and as broad of as many experiences as possible, understand the world, connect to as much as possible. So I don't know. Nothing comes to mind.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
I'm curious also, it's hard. I'm sure it's hard to pinpoint like one specific moment in a way, but are there moments or one moment that like when you reflect on, the fact that the way that you were raised in America, and obviously it's a little different and unique because of the fact that you were, as you mentioned, like about Tshuva, but the fact that because of the fact that you made Aliyah, that you're like, wow, like I'm so thankful that I made Aliyah in terms of like looking at something that my children are doing, like something you mentioned, like in terms of like, I know you mentioned already, like the fact that your son's like making Siyam shots, and that doesn't necessarily I don't think that happens so often in America. Are there other moments that you're like, you look at that and you're like, wow, like so incredibly grateful that I made Aliyah and, that I'm raising my children here?
It's an excellent question. Nothing really comes to mind. Like every second of the day, I love I'm a very positive person, upbeat about everything. I hardly ever look back and regret my decisions, so I'm kind of happy. Every second of the day is great. I'm happy with my children. I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with my wife. She's wonderful. I'm talking about parenting. I do 20% of the job on a good day. I'm exaggerating, but I don't know. I think we're very happy with our decision. Nothing specifically. Sorry to let you down. Every moment that the kids make us proud, we're proud. Everyone.
Right. And would you say that meaning having grown up in America versus, raising children in Israel, like what would you say are the differences between the way that parenting and raising children is?
It sounds funny, but I never really raised children in America.
Right.
I mentioned before, Israelis have a lot more freedom.
Right.
My kids come and go, and as they please, they take buses, and they're walking around Yerushalayim, at much younger ages than I would have thought. They have more responsibilities. I think there's a lot more independence. We kind of, I don't know, but it could just be the whole world is that way. Over 20 years later, there's a lot more freedom. The whole world, the kids have the internet and cell phones. They have the whole world. It could just be, I don't know.
Well, there's definitely more freedom with the fact of like the concept of Ubers nowadays. Like students, mine like are taking Ubers places that I'm like, that wasn't a concept when I was growing up. But
right,
now
me neither.
Yeah. But I feel like even in Israel, it's different that it's even younger. Meaning, at least I see with my nephews and my nieces, they'll go on a bus at a much younger age than even someone would be taking, let's say, an Uber here. So I definitely hear what you're saying in terms of that.
Yeah, my 6th and 7th graders, I put them all. I called up my son, at some point in time during Corona, they were off, and they finally let us have a little bit of freedom. So I called him at some point in time. I said to him, "You coming home from Mincha Marav?" He's like, "Abba, I'm in Renana." I'm like, "You can't just go to other cities without asking permission, Like you can't go to other countries, you can't go to other cities. You want to go to Yerushalayim, maybe, I growing up in New York, if I had kids growing up in Teaneck or Long Island or whatnot, I couldn't imagine calling my kid and finding out they're in Boston for the day. They didn't tell me like that. I couldn't. And my kids are uniquely independent, but I think even still,
right. What do you think? I'm curious. Like, what is it? Is it just because like the culture there, meaning what is it that in general, everyone in Israel, like the kids are just more independent? Is it because of the fact that you need the bus system differently than in America? It's like, it might be a hard question to answer, but I'm just curious.
I could take a guess. I'd imagine a little bit is that the public transportation is significantly easier and more commonly used. So that's like right off the bat. I also think the fact that they go to the army at, and they're like, they're given a gun and told to protect the country, at a much younger age, and they know they're growing into that. I think they also have experienced a lot more, partially because like terror attacks and stuff like that, but that causes you to grow up. When death strikes you in your face, you think about the value of life and who you are and what you want to be and where you want to go. And unfortunately, and I say this, with a heavy heart, every single kid in the country on some level or another, you experienced something like that on a deep level, whether you drove by or even if you don't know any, Baruch Hashem, you didn't know anyone who was hurt or killed or something or murdered or who knows what. Still, it's in the DNA a little more. I don't know why. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's more than just that.
As a parent, is there ever more of a concern of safety because of that component there, or when your children are leaving the house? Because it's ironic because we're talking about how they're independent, like going on buses and whatever. But at the same time, is there ever that added, I guess, concern? Yeah,
the answer is but different things. In other words, where I would tell my kids in America, don't go to this place at this time. I think just different fears and different concerns. The same we'd restrict, depending on the city you live in, where you go to, you restrict different things. So we live in the Gush, so we have so many Gush by us. There's unfortunately been more attacks there than many other places in the whole country, even. Right, I'm very careful about not, telling my kids not to go there, or, not to hang out there, or to not be on the phone. Keep your eyes open, looking around. I have a daughter who works in one of the local malls nearby. After school, she has a job working in a health food store at night. So she's there a few nights a week. So if it would have been, I don't know, if it would have been anywhere else, I would tell her if she wants, to take a bus there or to get, that type of thing, and then to hang out there and take the bus back. But these days we pick her up and drop her off, 2-3 nights a week, because that particular area, there's been attacks. Right. So you take natural safety precautions. Nothing, you got to live your life, but you got to live it smartly.
And how do you help your children process the acts of terrorism, and at what age do you say things like what, I'm that I feel is very different between America and Israel, because I think you have to process that with them at a younger age, typically. And,
for starters,
how do you process that with them?
Choosing what age to process is a non-starter. The kids already are processing it and know what's going on before you even would want them to. You can't get away from that. In other words, they're talking about it. It's on the, that's their vernacular. That's just the way they grow up. How do we help them process it? I don't know. Now that you say it, I think I should do a little reflection and do a better job in the future. We try our best to talk and to listen. We try our best to hear how they feel about things. We try our best to do like what all the parenting books say, like listen to their feelings and do like all these, what they call it, feelings coaching. Oh, you feel scared. I totally understand that. Although most of the time my kids, I don't know, I'm not sure, it almost sounds like in Israel you have like two extreme. One is like you're emotionally broken and falling apart because like something just happened or someone we were just in Virginia Beach for Pesach and the D family, I'm sure you know the story with the two daughters and the wife. And like my wife said to me, Tara said, we here we are enjoying this luxury house with an indoor swimming pool, having a great time over Pesach. And like, I feel like I should be mourning with Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. So on the one hand, there's like, I remember like numerous times that I cry, and I saw her crying. Like that was, we cried deeply and some of the times we're numb, but nothing in the middle. I don't know if that's healthy or not.
Right. But I feel like your children seeing you crying that's powerful also.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big baby. My kids see me cry all the time. Every time I tell stories of, Gedolim stories or Chayalim stories, I cry all the time. We'll sit around to watch a movie. My wife will handle it like tough, and I'm like Abbas, like pass me the tissues. So they but they do. They see me cry, and they not only that's things like movies, but like real life things. Yeah, they see it, and they grew up connected. They really feel part of Klal Yisrael, significantly more than I did growing up. And my father drilled it into us, and it's nothing like how my kids see it.
I'm probably maybe like one of the main reasons that I really wanted to talk to you is, the fact that both, in America or in Israel, to help children to really develop a real love and appreciation for both Eretz Yisrael, Medinat Yisrael, especially, Yeshivat Hakotel has that, that reputation of really helping students to really grow that love, and you being such a senior Ram there and really such a sought after Rebbe there. I'm curious how both in your professional life and in Yeshivat Hakotel, how do you teach that, and then how do you bring that up in your home and within your children? So
just living here, it's almost difficult to avoid it. I'll get to the Talmidim in a second. In terms of children and just Israelis living here, it's difficult to feel disconnected from nationality here, from a sense of Am Yisrael. I have a cousin who had moved to America for 10 years. And he came back after 10 years. And I remember I picked him up at some point in time and drove him to a family, I don't know, whatever it was, a simcha or something. And I said to him, why'd you go to America? He's like, everything here was garbage, just garbage, terrible. I said, so why'd you come back? He goes, I missed my garbage. It was my garbage and I missed it. And that's in my mind that there's something Israelis, you meet them wherever they are, no matter how religious or not religious or disconnected or how much they hate, whatever, who knows what. There's a certain sense of like, I belong in Israel and I know that. So there's a certain like natural love in the air that Israelis pick up. My kids have that in their DNA. In terms of, teaching, I guess, Americans that love and desire, I don't know, actually. It's almost like second nature. I could share with you some of the things that come to mind. Some of it's education. You hear Mar Makomos and you read Chumash. There's this great story of Rav Kook where someone asked him, why do you love Eretz Yisrael so much? And he's like, all of Chumash from Lech Lecha on is all about Eretz Yisrael. How do you read Chumash and not love Eretz Yisrael? So part of it's education and telling stories and connecting. Part of it's, the tiyulim. Part of it's just, the more you feel part of like, I get a sense of nationality. People like Klal Yisrael. This is like Klal Yisrael's home. This is where we belong. I think that's part of it. I don't know. How do people learn how to love anything? I guess, you tell yourself there's a value and you kind of slowly but surely allow your mind to process it. And then it kind of like seeps its way down emotionally to who you are. How do people learn how to love Torah or Shabbos? I don't know. The same thing, different values.
Right. I guess the thing with like Shabbos, right. You experience them. So how do you do that? Meaning from so far away, I guess for American parents raising it's hard.
Yeah, it's significantly more challenging. I'd imagine, visiting is a good experience. So learning a little bit, you learn the history of the politics, you take a class on Zionism. I think a lot of the high schools have that. The more you talk about it, the more it's on people's mind. In other words, the more you talk about, when something's going on there or whatever the things are, the more Eretz Yisrael is on your mind, the more it's in your heart.
I was saying that I remember the first time that I visited Eretz Yisrael. So my sister was in seminary for the year, and I was in high school. And as a high school boy, the first thing that came to my mind was like, wait, there's a mall here that has kosher food? Like, that's so crazy. Like, for some reason, that was like what like stuck out to me so much. And like that, but I hear you. I mean, going and visiting and really experiencing it, it really just like you see it in such a new light. Totally.
Yeah, that's a whole nother component. I didn't say that at all, but you're right. I mean, the Sprite cans, in America say, recycle me, I'll see you soon, which is kind of cute. But the Sprite cans in Israel say, Chag Sameach, I'm saying, like it, which is both important. there's not an anti-recycling pitch. It's more just like, you feel like,
Right.
you feel like the culture around you, every once in a while I wake up on December 25th, like, oh my goodness, it's Christmas. I totally didn't see that coming. Like that couldn't have happened back in New Jersey. So you do feel a sense of nationalism, I mean, they don't sell tefillin in the makolet, but they sell like Sfarim. Like in my mind, that just like it captures, in a certain sense in America, I feel Judaism's in shul in the Beis Medrash. Here it's all over the country. So that I guess for me, who happens to be a huge believer in Judaism and loves Judaism, you fall in love with the country more because it's just the, I was at the mall a few days ago, in Efrat. They built an outdoor mall, beautiful mall. So I took one of my kids shopping. He needed new tzitzis and I wanted to buy him ice cream. We get there and there's just like 35 people standing, davening mincha. And I was inspired by that. It was really like, it's nice to have, a culture of Torah mitzvahs like that, and the fact that it's again, to different levels. Obviously, more religious people have it more than less religious people, but the whole country has it to some degree or another. So that's also, it's inspiring. It's beautiful. It's one of the reasons why we love it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. Well, I'm also curious. I know, being that this is the Yom Ha'atzmaut episode, so I'm just curious. In terms of your own, when you were in America, when you were growing up, how different? I mean, obviously, I feel like it's obvious that there's a very big difference. But as a result of those differences, what do you do, or what did you try to do differently with your children, raising them in Israel? I mean, obviously, I feel like in a way, Yom Ha'atzmaut is just a huge celebration in Israel. But are there specific things that you were trying to be intentional about because of the fact that you knew growing up you didn't really have that experience in a way? Yeah,
it's an interesting question. I mean, growing up in America, we had like the black and white cookies, but they took the brown part out and put the blue in, and maybe the girls used to the girls would paint their face a little bit,
Right.
But it kind of seemed like, I don't want to say it was a mask. It wasn't like, no, but it was just another day that like, they served us falafel. I happen not to like falafel so much. So it wasn't such a, that people debated should say halal or not. Here it's, it's a few things. Meaning, for starters, you go out and like, you barbecue at the park and you just see like hundreds, maybe thousands of Jews. You just different types of Jews, and you feel connected. And I think even more than Yom Ha'atzmaut is Yom HaZikaron, maybe the connection between the two. You go to Yom HaZikaron and you walk around, Arutz, you walk around the cemetery, you just see like, again, tens of thousands of people who are brought together to appreciate those who made the ultimate sacrifice so we can live a dream that we've been aspiring to live for 2,000 years. And like, how do you not walk away inspired by that? Wow. You see like some lady who lost her son 6 months ago, and it's 4 rows down to some lady 40 years ago, and they're both crying over their sons, and it's tough, and you cry with them, and you feel with them, and you appreciate the sacrifices they make, and you appreciate what we have, and you appreciate on one hand where we're coming from and how hard it is to earn, and how much mesirus nefesh it requires to achieve what we have. And then you think about the dream and the vision. And my mind, Yom Ha'atzmaut on one hand is it's the Israeli version of July 4th, but it's a day that screams out Am Yisrael Chai, and it's a day that screams out like our religious future is just so bright and optimistic. And you look at where we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30, 40, 50, all the way through, and like the optimism and the dream and the hope for the future, was I don't know. It's so the answer is we go to the park and we barbecue, but. You know what I'm saying? The meat tastes good, but it's you feel like part of something bigger. I think in general you feel that here. In other words, it's a little bit partially because 20 years ago things were a little bit different. I think the world has moved a little bit more in America, a little bit firmer, a little bit more traditional, which I think is a great thing. But I also think, I'm not sure connected to it, maybe, but maybe not. It's a little bit less ideological. I feel like when I was 20 years ago, people were making ideological debates. Who are you and how are you hashkafically? I think these days they're a little bit smaller. At least.
What do you mean by that?
I just felt, I'm not even sure, and I don't want to get overly political, but I felt like I was dreaming about bigger things than just making sure I stay from. I think that like making sure I could say sinachas for my children. Now that's great. There may be nothing more important in the world than that, but it's not the only important thing. I think when you're in Israel, you just feel like you're part of, again, you're part of something bigger. You feel like you have a more central driving role in like writing the next chapter of Jewish history. Like how people look at Jewish history. The chapter 1, starting from Hakamas Medina, there's a lot of chapters before, obviously, like, the Holocaust and Hakamas Medina, like how that country progresses. People are going to be learning this history 200 years from now. And like, how my children, the careers they choose and how they interact and who they vote for and the government. I just feel like it's the responsibility to write Jewish history and to cultivate a country is, is just so much more in my hands. I really feel, in that sense, it takes your religious horizons and expands them. And I feel like that's true all year round. It's true much more in Israel, but I feel it's the truest, or at least the day that captures that particular hope and excitement is Yom Ha'atzmaut. So I don't know. I definitely feel that. How do I communicate that to my children? Ironically, I don't know if I do. I don't do it with words. I don't know if you, as much as words capture a lot of ideas, somehow the dreams, I feel like the national dreams of Klal Yisrael sometimes are captured more by just like going to the park and seeing, 1,500 Jews appreciating what we have, opposed to, giving them some type of mussar shmooze about how they should appreciate, who knows what. I don't know.
Right.
I guess
right.
Experiential.
Yeah. And would you say that there are, I guess, components of that can be captured even in America, or is it like you got to be there to really?
I got to believe you can do more than less. I'm sure watching the Yom HaZikaron videos and you see someone's face, like for me, you go to you go to the cemetery and you see someone like just a mother crying and you just feel like the incredible emotional connection she has. I think that really inspires me a lot. So that type of things, I'm sure you can capture on like YouTube videos. I'm sure there's great videos of, I think the internet would probably be the most direct way of connecting to what's going on here. You hear the bell going off and you see the whole country stopping and just silence. It's just like, it's emotion. I'm saying, just to stop and have a kar satov and appreciate what people have done for us, that's so I guess watching that on the internet and connecting on the internet is probably really important. I'd imagine just again, the more Eretz Yisrael is in your mind, the more it's in your heart. The more you talk about it, the more you hear, if there's a lecture at the shul, the more you take involvement, the more you make a conscious effort to be connected, the more you find yourself connected.
Sure. And, I guess switching over to like the Talmidim component for a second.
Sure.
What is it that there is something that's like one of the things that is more unique, I guess, in a way, about Hakotel than all of the even the other Hesder yeshivas is that they have this component. They have this very Zionistic component. A lot more Talmidim end up making Aliyah or going to serve in the army. How does the yeshiva give that over? Like in 1 year of many years of living in America, and then 1 year being in Eretz Yisrael, being in Israel, they really developed this incredible love.
So I don't know about the other shivas, but I'll tell you what we do. For starters, we start, I don't want to say we're born on third base, but we have a little bit of an edge that we're a magnet to big religious Zionistic families and kids. And a lot of times a kid wants to go to the army, so it's almost like, where you going, boom, right to Hakotel. So in a certain sense, as much as you want to give us credit, I'm not sure how we deserve more than zero. Don't get me wrong.
Well, it's like which one came first. Meaning, if first came that
the chicken and the egg, they came at the same time. But you're right, or they play off each other, no doubt. I think. What else do we do? A lot of times the boys look at older guys in the yeshiva, or like a guy who made Aliyah, went to college, bought himself a house in Modi'in, drives like a reasonable car. And he says to himself, all these sacrifices that I thought I'd have to make in living in Israel, I just don't see them. They're dressed well. Mm-hmm. The kids have food, comfortable food. They pulled up in a nice car to visit the yeshiva. It's a comfortable house and they have a nice job. And life is, the financial situation in Israel has improved so much that, I think that's a major thing. I think also the world is a lot smaller. So it's just it's a lot easier. But I think really, really, really what we try to, I don't know if every yeshiva does, I got to imagine, yes, but one thing we try to do very much is help the kids find themselves on a path where they could say, I am on a path into growing into the person I'll be proud of for all my life. This is like the religious trajectory, which will help me develop into the person I really want. And I think Eretz Yisroel often is a part of that. I think that's there's a certain sense of just deeply feeling comfortable with themselves religiously here. That's probably a big part of it. Seeing others successful and realizing that, the world is smaller and the sacrifice is not as great, as well as all the ideology that I mentioned until now. I really don't know. It sounds funny. You'd think I'm talking more about Eretz Yisrael now than I do most days in yeshiva. I walk in the morning and we learn Masechet Shabbos this year. So we're understanding Rashi Tosis in the Davish and Miskavein and working through Rishonim and Achronim. I talk about Eretz Yisrael from time to time. It's one of the 613 mitzvahs. And again, at Yom Ha'atzmaut time, it certainly makes sense. So, but
sure.
I don't know.
I mean, they're living it with you as you live it.
I guess so. Yeah. It's funny. My wife and I, so we live here in Neve Daniel. So, it means a lot more to her than to me to have a nice house. She likes to have everything clean and renovated and a nice big backyard. And we have a bunch of bedrooms. Thankfully, we were blessed that we were able to put it together.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Every once in a while, like she's got me to fall in love with it a little more over the years. I've grown, I may grow up a little bit, grow to appreciate this, but like once in a while, like a Talmud will come over, a Talmidah will come over, and, they'll say something like, like I could see myself living in a community like this. And I don't know if it just kind of reinforces any insecurities I had. And, it's psychologically reassuring for me, or it kind of just like says, I should be proud of the lifestyle and the family and the house. And, this in a certain sense, again, I don't know what I did to be Zoche, but like in a certain sense, if you'd told my great, who knows what father, that one day you'll have a great son raising children in Eretz Yisroel and with a comfortable house and, a Sfarim in the background and the kids learning and the kids, I'm not sure what I would have wanted more from my, so in that sense, I don't know, maybe, we're blessed. It's just exciting. So like part of me when the Talmidim come over, like, wow, I could see myself doing that, great. Like me too. I see it so much that, live in it.
Right.
I don't know.
That's amazing. As we wrap up, any final message on this topic of raising children with a love for Eretz Yisrael and the differences between Eretz Yisrael and America and raising children,
Yeah, maybe I'll scale back a little bit. Again, you asked me a lot of questions about what it's like living in Israel, so I answered them. I'm not convinced everyone has, once in a while you have all these people, a lot of people, neighbors around me, everyone has to make aliyah. It's the only Jewish value. It's not the only Jewish value. I like to tell people, and I talk about Hakotel this way, I tell my children this way in general. If you don't appreciate that Eretz Yisrael, not everyone has to make aliyah, but if you don't appreciate that Eretz Yisrael is different and unique and special in our homeland, then I think you're missing something. In other words, when I grew up living in America, I knew it was a great place, and that's where I lived. I called it my home. But really, in a certain sense, my house was my home. My community was my community. I didn't feel America was mine. In a certain sense, I walk around here, I feel like Israel's mine. And that I think you can have, at least intellectually, that knowledge in America. I think I had that in America. When I came to Israel, I kind of like, emotionally, I connected to what I always knew. So in that sense, again, not everyone has to make aliyah tomorrow, but you should appreciate what we have, and you should appreciate, in general, and particularly Yom Ha'atzmaut time. I guess it's a great time to reflect upon the incredible gift that Kadosh Baruch Hu has given this, this generation. And maybe just one more thought. I know you asked me for a final thought, but as a rabbi, I get a bunch of last bonus thoughts. I was talking to a friend of mine from Canada, and he said to me that he said, my grandfather likes to say, and he never made aliyah, never moved to Israel. He goes, there's a difference between being a homeless man and a guest. In Eretz Yisrael is that difference. Living in Canada, I'm a guest in Canada, but if there'd be no country of Eretz Yisrael, I'd be a homeless man. I'd be a beggar. I'd have nowhere else to go. So just kind of knowing that, I got Yom Ha'atzmaut time's a time to appreciate Eretz Yisrael. So I guess if you're talking about parenting and Yom Ha'atzmaut, so here's a great time to try to help the kids connect to those values.
Totally. Amazing. Thank you so much. Really, so
Pleasure.
much amazing points and really very, very insightful ideas. And I really appreciate your time, especially on an Erev Shabbos, right before Shabbos. And it's amazing how calm it is in your house. It's incredible.
I told you my wife, she's a hero. So that's why I snuck out this little amount of time. Thank you for hosting me. I really enjoyed it. This was great.
It was a pleasure. Really a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.